Hello everyone, and welcome to this video which is in our Human Game series. I'm Grandmaster Matthew Sadler, and we're taking a look at another great game from the really dramatic and exciting Koneru against Muzychuk Women's Candidates Quarter-Final, the recent Women's Candidates that's just finished. So the match started brilliantly for Humpy Koneru with a wonderful win the Queen's Gambit accepted, and just somehow never quite managed to build on that, although definitely had chances as well in the match. But let's have a look at this game. It's really worth seeing. So d4, d5, c4 and d takes c4. The Queen's Gambit accepted that I played for a lot of my professional career, one of my favourite openings. Knight f3, knight f6, e3, e6, bishop takes c4, c5, castles and a6. And this is really the big point of Black's system here. You want to play b5 and bishop b7 and get that light squared bishop, which is often a problem piece in Queen's pawn openings, onto that lovely diagonal. And this move d takes c4 in the second move, it just clears the centre and gives your pieces lots and lots of play. Now there are many lines for white, and I've had to face pretty much all of them during my professional career. Koneru, maybe just mindful that it was the first game of the match, chose a very solid but a very good idea, and that's to play b3. And the idea simply is that white's going to play bishop b2, knight bd2, and then you can decide on your development. Sometimes you play queen e2, sometimes you bring the bishop back to e2 and play the knight to c4. But you're basically trying for a slight advantage in a pawn structure that's likely to become symmetrical. So quite interesting there. Muzychuk played the move knight bd7. Which is quite nice. We'll explain it later what Muzychuk was doing here. And here Koneru played quite subtly bishop e2. You can tell that that both players are quite familiar with plenty of subtleties in these openings. One fantastic thing that happened was that I was running lots of engine matches just to prepare this video, and I came across the following one. It was Stockfish against Dragon. And this was the game. So bishop b2 played, and then bishop e7. And what white always does, as soon as you go, as black goes bishop e7, then you take on c5. And the idea is to make black waste a tempo with bishop takes c5. You could go knight takes c5, but these endings tend to be slightly better for white. So bishop takes c5 is probably preferable. Now Stockfish did a great job of pointing its pieces towards the king side. So bishop d3, b5 was played, knight bd2, castles, and now the move a4. So we're attacking this pawn on b5, threatening to take it, of course. If you go on to b4, that was more often my favourite way of playing. It does give white a lovely square on c4 for the knight. Can't be attacked by pawns anymore, and attack squares like a5, b6, d6 can also come into to e5 as well. So, black played b takes a4. Basically, you get rid of that tension, and then you get this developing move, bishop b7. But Stockfish went all in, and, I've looked at some of these attacks where you swung the rook over a4 to h4, looked at it from the white point of view, but somehow never really managed to make it work. But, boy, Stockfish certainly did in this game. So, bishop e7, knight c4, a5, pretty typical idea from black, just making sure you get the b4 square. You can play maybe a5, a4 later. We get a hell of an attack now because knight g5 comes in. We're attacking the pawn on h7, h6. And now, can you see white's next move here? Incredible. Rook takes h6. Wow. With the great point that after g takes h6, we play, give you a little moment to spot it. Think of all those tactical puzzles you solved, all those puzzle rush things. That's right, queen h5. Queen h5 is the move. And if knight h5, we have the amazing bishop h7 checkmate there. But Dragon, of course, these engines, they see all of this. So, for us, it's looking petrifying. For the engines, they're pretty cool about it. Knight c5 played, so trying to defend You're going to try and bring your queen here and then come back here. That's always the idea. So what did Stockfish do? Wow, bishop g6. That's what Stockfish played. So obviously you can't take it off because queen takes and checkmate. And now Dragon came up with something stunning as well. Play the move king g7, just getting out of the way. And if bishop takes... Oh, I should have prepared this a bit more. I think queen d3, that's the move I was thinking of. And the queen's going to be able to come back to f5, for example, and keep everything covered. So after king g7, Stockfish played knight takes f7, takes. There's still loads of pins, right? The queen is en prise, but the bishop is pinning the knight to the king, so you can't take it. Queen d5, queen g6, king f8, knight e5. How is this not mate? Hard to say. Key thing you've got to watch out, by the way, is that this bishop and queen battery, they're aiming at the g2 square. So this queen on g6 is both attacking and also defending the pawn on g2. Bishop d6 played. That's why you can't play queen f6 now, because of queen takes g2 checkmate. So knight f3, nice move, blocks this attack on g2, and we're attacking f6. Queen f5, takes. Bishop f3 takes, knight takes b3, and we get this position where white's got the two bishops and extra pawn, but black has actually got a rather fast a pawn, and well, this turned out to be a draw in the end. Komodo Dragon managed to hold it and get to a knight and 2 versus bishop and 3 ending, which it held. But yeah, amazing, right? Wow, what a set of tactics. You know, people sometimes ask me, why on earth do you run engine games all the time? Well, you know, I just see so much of this stuff. I just can't get enough of it. Well, what Koneru did was play bishop e2, which is a pretty common idea as well. The idea simply is that, you know, after, if black goes b5 now, well, we'll play our a4 line, and if b4, we'll go knight d2. There's also the idea that we could turn this bishop into a Catalan bishop by moving it to f3, and then it would attack the black queen side. So Muzychuk actually played a very interesting idea here, which have I played it in this specific position? Maybe close actually, which was to play b6, not b5. What's the idea of b6? The idea is that, you know, when you play b5, you get undermined with a4 straight away. But I mean, you know, what you really want to achieve with b5 is to get this bishop on b7. So you just play this move b6, and then you play bishop b7. You get to your development, but you don't expose that b pawn. You know, on the downside, you're not yet stopping the knight coming into c4, but there's nothing stopping you later when you're completely developed from going b6 to b5 yourself later. So yeah, I mean, I came up with this idea against a variety of lines in the Queen's Gambit Accepted, played it quite a bit, scored very well with it. So it's nice to see that it's still, you know, one of the main lines, something like, yeah, I guess 25 years later. Quite amazing. So after b6, Koneru played the very interesting knight e5. And it's that idea that we were talking about. We're just trying to get the bishop to f3 as quickly as possible to attack that rook on a8. Now, yeah, Muzychuk played the most solid move, which is bishop b7. You could consider knight takes e5 and knight d5. You know, this pawn on e5 is quite nice. It gives an outpost on d6 for a knight. So, you know, we play knight d2, we play bishop to b2, and then we come in with knight e4. The engine seem to think that this is okay. I mean, it feels nice for white to me, but yeah, somehow you'd sort of hope that you could get some sort of kingside pawn storm going on. But this knight on d5 is quite effective, just attacking this pawn on e3. So yeah, I mean, rook d8, h3, rook d7, rook d1, b5, and now, yeah, you know, this pawn was being sacrificed like this. And, you know, just trying to make something of the two bishops and the dark squares. I mean, white's got nice compensation for the pawn, but nothing much more than that. You know, black's, you know, completely fine as well. And normally what happened was that you know, the engines managed to find a way just to give back the pawn and just be fine in these positions. So knight takes e5, not a silly idea at all, although, yeah, you know, human feeling is that white feels a bit better there, but the engines, you know, hold it very easily. Bishop b7 was played by Muzychuk, and this should also be a good move. Bishop f3, takes on f3, queen takes, and now bishop d6. That's the most common move selected by my engines. This one was also chosen, just takes and first and bishop d6. We go bishop f4 and then we take and go knight d5. And then after knight c3 we've got this important move queen b8 to attack the pawn on e5. You go rook e1 and then I go castles, and the point of attacking this pawn on e5 is that you can't go knight e4 because then I've got queen takes e5. So you stop that knight on c3, making use of a dangerous outpost like d6. Slightly better for white, this position. I mean, you've got a bit more space and some potential for getting a knight into a great square, but in principle this should also be quite holdable for black. It's all a matter of taste, really. Bishop d6 was played by Muzychuk, and now Koneru did something very interesting here. Took on d7, knight d7, and then played the move bishop a3, pinning the bishop on the pawn on c5 to the bishop on d6. And this seems to have provoked some sort of reaction from Muzychuk. I mean, this was the first game, quarterfinals, obviously tense affair. The engines are very, very calm in this position. They want to just play the move castles, and after knight d2, then they want to play Muzychuk's idea, which is to go queen b8. You're defending this bishop on d6, so you're preparing c takes d4, and you've also got the little idea bishop takes h2 check as well. And takes, rook d1, bishop h2. This was what the engines were looking at all the time. Knight c4, bishop e7. The queen comes into c6. It's a little bit of an initiative for white, but it comes out to this position, and my engines were holding this beautifully. I think you could probably play this in a human game for a little bit of an edge, but in general it should just be equal. Castle's probably the best move, but what Muzychuk did was very interesting, actually. Played the move queen b8 straight away, just attacking this pawn on h2. And here Koneru played a very interesting idea as well, d takes c5. So now black's got to decide what to do. I had a little bit of time spare today, so I spent some interesting moments looking at this line, bishop h2 and bishop e5, and quite interesting idea, just attacking this rook on a1. Obviously there's quite a bit of danger all over the place. You start seeing stuff like this and this king on e8, so it's not a serious suggestion, but it was quite interesting. I really managed to break it, not really. After c6, black can play knight c5, one idea that I particularly liked was to go play the move knight c3 in this position. The idea is that after bishop takes c3, I play bishop takes c5. If you go bishop a1, I've got c7, which is very, very unpleasant, because I've got this dual threat of queen c6, and I'm also attacking this rook on a8. And if you go bc, then I wanted to go c7, queen a7, only move, queen c6 check, king e7, and rook d1, and that looked pretty strong to me, I thought. if you do something like rook e8, I've got this move rook d7 here, and then c8 queen, which is quite sneaky. So if you go rook c8, I'll even just go queen d6 check, for example, and annoy you like that. If you go something like rook c8, then I thought that rook d7, king f8, and rook d1 was really strong, because after bishop f6 I go queen d6 and rook d8 check. So that was quite interesting. Just one little thing you might be wondering about: what is Matthew talking about? Why is queen a7 forced here? Why can't you just go queen c8? Well, in that case, that's a nice idea. I go check and queen c5, and I pick up this dark squared bishop on c3, which is very nice. The one thing that I noticed, though, was that black could play the move queen e5 and try and get out of it. What I was assuming was that if I go c7, then queen d5 looked annoying to me, but I assumed that I could just go play the move bishop d4 takes and takes, and I think that is my impression that either rook d1 here or c7. I think this pass c pawn is going to be worth way more than a pawn. Possibly this is winning for white. So that was I was having quite a good fun time there. I mean, another idea which is quite nice would be to play c takes b6, and after bishop a1 to go rook d1, because you've got some difficulties there. If knight b6, I've got queen c6 check, and obviously if you go queen b6, then I've got queen a8 check. And I was sort of thinking that I might have come up with some ideas like bishop d6, for example, and then b7. And I've even got ideas like rook d7 and queen f7 check. But I couldn't break bishop e5. I need to check this really seriously with an engine. This was just me calculating by myself, really. So yeah, don't base your whole preparation on it without checking something. It's a little bit tough. I mean, if I go queen c6, then there's queen c8, which seems to do the trick. And the line I was hoping for was knight c3 takes bishop d6. Queen here, and then bishop c7, and I thought I'm going to win the queen. If you go to c8, I go b7. But I realized that there was a great reason for having captured that pawn on h2, because we get a check, and then I can go castles, and we're absolutely fine. So I couldn't really make c takes b6 work. I think that c6 is very strong. Certainly should be strong, But anyway, that might be a line that Anna had to calculate. The engines actually just want to play the calm bishop c5, bishop b2, and castles. And well, white's a tiny bit better here because your rooks are coming slightly quicker onto the C and D files, and this queen's maybe a little bit awkward. But yeah, I mean, the engines managed to neutralize this all the time, of course. But might have been a little bit annoying in the human game. Knight takes c5 was what Muzychuk played, and this is a very interesting line. Actually, the engines they show great restraint. I mean, because Koneru couldn't resist playing queen c6 check, and to be honest, it's one of those moves that even if you think it's not the best for white, you want to play it anyway, because you know that if you don't do it, your opponent will be relieved. It's one of those things, really. It feels like the way to punish black for having played knight takes c5, having played this whole plan with queen b8 before having castled. My engines just want to go knight d2, castles, and then rook fd1, and we get pretty standard play. You can take on h2. You can also play b5, which was a move that I was always keen on. Playing that b5 move in an extra move, but now very usefully stopping the knight to c4. But Koneru played queen c6 check, king e7, and now knight d2. And here, really, Muzychuk started just going wrong, really. I think, maybe ambitious, I think, thinking, well, I can take a pawn on h2. This one's free. Am I really in that much danger? I don't believe it. I'll go for it. Because here there was a very simple move. There was queen b7, and after queen b7, knight takes b7, this should be about equal. I think the only thing that you have to look at a little bit is, and I could imagine that this would be maybe look a little bit irritating. Lines like this, for example, where you say, oh, okay, this knight on d6 is getting pinned, but we can just simply play e5 and then follow up with king e6. If you go rook c1, I could even play this move king e8, just getting out of the pin. And of course, if you go rook c8, I take with a knight, and I'm completely fine. So that all seems to be quite safe. A little bit of precision required, but queen b7 really would have been the safe move. There's nothing wrong with rook c8, but it is getting a little bit risky. I mean, this king is in the center, and we've got a bishop pointing towards it. So yeah, some care required. And after queen f3, Muzychuk played bishop h2, king h1. But now it went really wrong, and actually it was basically one mistake, and probably at the human level you're lost. Maybe Stockfish can still hold it, but I mean it's really bad. Bishop e5 was the key required idea, and the great idea is after rook c1, you just run with the king, run for the hills, knight e4, and king g8. and you give back the pawn like this, and you play a5 and oops, queen b5. Well, even that's not bad, but a5 I think. Rook c4, bishop d6, and you're fine. I mean, this position is just absolutely fine for black. So that was really, and there doesn't seem to be any other way to do it really. I mean, there's lots of ideas. I mean, knight c4 and knight b6 is possible to play bishop c5. Obviously, if you play rook takes c5, I've got queen a8 check. But okay, I mean, you just move your queen to a5 and there's no problem at all. So that still seems to be absolutely safe, bishop e5. But Muzychuk went bishop d6. I think, planning what she did in the game, but that turns out to have a massive tactical flaw. So, yeah, I mean, knight c4 was played by Koneru here, which is very reasonable. Probably just transposes to this Stockfish line. Stockfish was playing rook d1 first, and if you go b5 to stop knight c4, then queen h5, and yeah, I mean, it's just, this king is here, and it just means that all of these pawns are very vulnerable. Obviously, you're not going to take necessarily on h7 straight away, but you can just bring a lot of pieces into there. The king's just got no safe place there. And, this one was being chased away. Then we play e4. We're looking for e5 here. So e5 played, knight h4. And it's just getting really, really dangerous for black. This king just doesn't have a good place. Well, that's not a great move, but it's certainly what you'd want to do with black. But Koneru played knight c4, which is also a good move. And here, this is where it really became completely lost for black, which is, in a way, quite shocking, I have to say. It wouldn't, not necessarily the first thing that would occur to me. The only move was actually king e8 in this position. And after rook d1, we go bishop f8. It looks like you're putting the pieces back in the box for the next game. But it's not true. Yeah, I mean, the idea simply is that you're actually just about managing to cover all the squares. You have to cover this square d7. The rook can't be allowed to get in there for free. And obviously, you have to cover d6, you have to cover b6, you have to cover c6 as well. Yeah, I mean, you're just basically going to try and get the queen out here and start trying to swap off some pieces. Yeah, Stockfish managed to hold this against Dragon, but yeah, I wouldn't really fancy my chances, to be honest. It was very, very unpleasant indeed. What actually happened in the game, I'll show you quickly. Queen h3, bishop e5, we got a knight d6 in. We got rook d1, and then amazingly this seems to work. Takes there, and there doesn't seem to be any sort of mate available. So we got bishop g7, rook d7, takes, check, f4, rook c1, rook there takes, and Stockfish managed to hold this ending. I'm sure I'd lose a rook somehow with a cunning check, but yeah, Stockfish managed to hold this against Komodo Dragon. Yeah, very, very fraught, and obviously, moves like king e8 and bishop f8 are not really the ones you want to play. Muzychuk's move was very natural, bishop f8, but king f8 rather, but actually after rook d1, bishop e7. Yeah, I wonder whether Muzychuk had missed this. It's, I mean, it's really easy sometimes in complicated positions to miss simple captures. It was one of the things I learned from Mikhail Tal's games, that, he did a lot of crazy attacks and all that, but the basis often seemed to be just that he simply took something at some stage, and you thought, oh yes, you can do that too. It's not all, wildly giving up stuff. You can also just grab material as well. And bishop c5 was what was played by Koneru, and this is horrific for black. The main problem is that, well, if bishop e7, then rook d7 is enormously strong. You'd never even consider that. Rook c5, which is the move you'd really want to play, fails to knight b6, and we've got this double attack here. That king on f8 is really wrong. If it was on e8, life would be better. I'm not saying it would be great, but it would be better. So b takes c5 is the only move. But now rook d7, and yeah, I mean, I just, I played through this game, or I saw this game happen very quickly, and finish was nice, but I hadn't really understood what the big threat was here. I sort of wondered, well, surely there was a better move than rook a7, which is what Muzychuk played, but actually the key idea that black has is just, the white has rather, is rook b7, and the queen on b8 is trapped. I mean, that's the huge problem. It doesn't even go away there, because if you go something like rook d8, for example, I can just go rook b7 and knight b6, and the queen is trapped again. So, yeah, I mean, this is just a massive double threat. Double threat? What do you mean? Rook b7 is one threat, and after rook a7, we've also got knight d6, which is a gorgeous little tactic. We are threatening queen takes f7, and we are also attacking the rook on c8. If you take on d6, I've got queen f7, of course. If you take the rook, then I've just got queen f7 again. And, well, this is what Muzychuk did. If you take with the queen, then you could take on d6, but the simplest is just to go rook a7. And just with the idea of doubling, even tripling on the e file, it's total carnage. And Muzychuk resigned here, which I think is, just a good decision. Game's gone badly. You've got 3 more games. Don't torture yourself unnecessarily in this sort of situation. It's lost. Move on and concentrate on the rest of the match. Which, of course, Muzychuk did brilliantly, winning the last game of the standard games with the brilliant white game, which we've seen earlier in the video, and then winning on, as the tie breaks got tenser and tenser. But this was a gorgeous game from Koneru. I mean, I liked the opening. I think was a really good choice for the first game of a match. Just, building up the pressure, with b3 and bishop b2. Sharp little idea with knight e5 and bishop f3, and that just put... I mean, it might just fizzle out to a draw, but black's got to find it, and some of these things can be awkward. And certainly, when the chance came for an attack, Koneru played it very, very well, not afraid to sacrifice the h2 pawn. And then, finding this gorgeous little finish, rook d7 and knight d6. Really a very nice game, and obviously had quite an impact on Muzychuk, because she did not repeat the Queen's Gambit accepted in the rest of the match, switching to some sort of Tarrasch or semi-Tarrasch systems. And that actually served her very, very well. Got quite a few. Actually, didn't seem to be in very much trouble theoretically as black. After that, so a good adjustment to that early setback as well. So there we are. That's probably the last game that we'll look at from this wonderful Koneru Muzychuk women's quarterfinals. Yeah, do stay tuned for more human games. Why not give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, take a look at my new course, the Silicon Road to Chess Improvement, a book, and also a Chessable course, perfect for Christmas, I can assure you. What else would you be doing at that time of the year? And otherwise, thanks very much for watching the video, and hope to see you soon. Thanks very much.